Alright, so today we're going to be talking about factoring for the first time, and there are going to be a lot of different sections on factoring because this is probably the third most important algebraic skill that you are going to learn. So first is solving equations, second graphing equations, third is factoring. We are going to use factoring pretty much in the entirety of the remainder of this course. So it's not going to go away. This is something that it's really important that you understand. So make sure you reach out early if you're needing some help. So in this video, and there's more than one quiz on this section, the video covers all of them. We are talking about factoring x squared plus bx plus c. So one of the first things that it's important to note is that because this is an x squared, that means that everything that we are factoring in this section is quadratic, which means it's degree 2. So we will eventually see more things that are not degree 2 in the next video, at least to begin with. I have this like nicknamed chart factoring, and that's because when I factor these types of polynomials, I encourage you to make a chart as your work, because what that does is that prevents you from just randomly guessing or thinking that something isn't factorable. So what we are doing when we chart factor is we are making this little T-chart looking guy, and we are listing the factors of C, which is the constant, on the left side. Remember that factors means multiply. So we're looking for pairs of numbers that multiply to give you your constant. The right side of the chart, what we are looking for is the sum of those factors. And what we're looking for is we want ones that add, because that's what sum means, to b, which is the coefficient of x. When we chart factor these x squared plus bx plus c's, our final answer should look something like this, with 2 parentheses, an x in the front of both of them, and then some constant behind. Now, we're going to have a whole thing for sign rules. These actually do not need to be pluses, because if a or b is negative, then it becomes a minus. But I want you to remember, this is one of the most important things of factoring. No matter what type of factoring it is, if you are finished factoring, you can check your answer by multiplying it back out. So check by FOIL. And so what that would mean in this case is that when I do x times x, the product of that gives me x squared, which gives me my quadratic term. When I multiply the O, the outsides of FOIL, that gives me bx. I for insides, a times x is ax. And then finally, a times b, which is just ab. Now, what's important to note, and they'll ask questions about this, is they'll ask, what does the product of A and B give you? Well, the product of A and B gives me my constant in my final answer. Likewise, what does the product of the AX and BX give me? Well, these give me the coefficient of the x term, or the linear term. So those pieces of the FOIL always give us back the same thing. Now, sign rules. When we have our A and our B's, if my first one is positive and my second one is positive, so A and B are both positive, that means, or not A and B, B and C. So if B and C are both positive right here, that means that both factors are positive, like this, plus A plus B when you factor them. If your B and your C, so if the first one, excuse me, if the first one is negative and the second one is positive, so meaning negative x term, positive constant, then that means that both your factors are going to have a minus. So it would be x minus A, x minus B. If your B term is positive and your C term is negative, then that means you're going to have one factor positive and one negative. If your linear term is negative and your constant term is negative, then you will also have one factor that's positive and one that's negative. If you think about this, if you focus on the second sign, on the sign for the C, we know that to multiply to get a positive, you either need to have two positives or two negatives. So that's why both factors have the same sign when you're looking at a plus on your constant. We know that to multiply to get a negative, you have to have one positive and one negative, which is why, regardless of whether that B term is positive or negative, we have one of each down here. The steps you're going to follow to factor these is just in your chart. So, first step in your chart is going to be to list all the factor pairs of whatever your constant is. Then you are going to find the sum of those factors of C. And then step 3, use the factors that add to B. All right, so we are going to go through 4 different examples doing these same 3 steps every time. Now, you can pay attention to the sign rules. Hopefully, if I do these 3 steps right, when I am finished, because you should always use the sign rules to check, since I have plus plus, both of my factors that I list in my answer should be positive. So let's see. I make my little chart. I am looking for factors of C, which is 45 in this case. Then I'm going to have the sum of those factors. Now, some of you are going to be in the case where you just know what the answer is right away. And if that's true, that's totally fine. But I want you to know at least how to go through this process, because when you get to more difficult numbers, if you don't systematically list all the factors, you're going to forget a set of factors and then wonder why you can't come up with the answer. So when I list the factors, I start with 1 because everything's divisible by 1. So 1 times 45 would give me 45. And then I just go up the list. So 2, well, 2 doesn't evenly divide 45, so I don't have to list it. 3, 45 divided by 3 is 15, so 3 and 15. 4, it's not divisible by 4. 5, 45 divided by 5 is 9, so 5 and 9 are a factor pair. 45 is not divisible by 6, it's not divisible by 7, and it's not divisible by 8. I now am positive that I got all the factor pairs because I did 6, 7, 8, and I've now come back around the side to this guy. So I know I haven't missed anything. So now I'm just going to list the sums. 1 plus 45 is 46. 3 plus 15 is 18. 5 plus 9 is 14. I want to use in step 3 the factors that add to B. So my B in this case is 14. So I call these my winning numbers, my winning factors, and they're both positive, which should make sense because of what I said at the beginning. So x plus 5 times x plus 9 would be my answer. Now remember, if I were to go through and FOIL this back out, which you don't have to do this every time, but I'm just going to check my answer here. X times x is x squared. X times 9 is 9x. 5 times x is 5x. 5 times 9 is 45. These two in the middle do give me 14x, so I am sure I have checked it. And this is my final answer. Now, a lot of the time on your quizzes, they're either going to give you the factors and ask you which trinomial it makes, which means you just have to FOIL it out to give you this, or they may ask you, instead of what's the correct factorization, they might say, what is one factor of x squared plus 14x plus 45. So meaning the answer would only have one of x plus 5 or x plus 9, and you just have to choose the right one. All right, let's move on to the next one. So here I now want the factors of 60. I look at my sign rules. My first sign is negative and my second is positive. So negative, positive means that both the factors I list should be negative. So when I'm listing of factors of 60, I want ones that are negatives. So -1 with -60 is where I start. -2, 60 divided by 2 is 30, so -2, -30. It's divisible by 3 also, -3, -20. It is, let's see, divisible by 4 as well, -4 and 15. -5 with -12. -6 with -10. It's not divisible by 7 or by 8 or by 9. I've come back around to the other side because here's 10, so I'm done. Now find their sum. And in this case, I'm wanting the ones that add to -17. So these would be my winning factors. Fill those in. X minus 5 and x minus 12 are the two binomials that would multiply to give me this trinomial. All right. Oops. Somehow I labeled this guy B as well. Obviously, that's C. Okay, so x squared plus 11x minus 12. Always, always, always look at those signs first, because again, if you start listing positives here, you're going to get these two signs wrong. So first one's positive, second one's negative. So that's right here, positive, negative. Tells me one of the factors I list is positive and one is negative. That's because really when I'm listing factors, my C is negative. So factors of negative 12. So it could be 1 with negative 12. This one, unlike the others, I actually have to list doubles each time because I could switch the signs. 12 divided by 2 is 6. So 2 and negative 6, or negative 2, positive 6. 3 and negative 4, or negative 3, positive 4. And I'm back around to the other side already. So this gives me negative 11. This gives me positive 11. This gives me negative 4. This gives me positive 4. Negative 1 and positive 1. So I wanted positive 11. So that would be these factors. So one is a negative 1. One of them is a positive 12. So x minus 1 times x plus 12. So these are the two binomials that multiply to give me this trinomial. Last one. Here we are looking for factors of negative 32. And when I'm looking on this, always check your sign rules. I have negative, negative. So that's one positive, one negative, just like what we did in C. So I have 1 with negative 32, negative 1 positive 32. I have 2 with negative 16, negative 2 positive 16. 32 is not divisible by 3. It is divisible by 4, so it's 4 and negative 8, negative 4, positive 8. It's not divisible by 5. It's not divisible by 6. It's not divisible by 7. So this is the entirety of my list. I find their sum. 1 plus negative 32 is negative 31. This one would give me the positive version. This would give me negative 14, positive 14, negative 4, and positive 4. So my middle coefficient, the x coefficient, is negative 4. So I want this guy. These are my winning factors. So one of my binomials is x plus 4. The other one is x minus 8. All right, so make sure that you have your sign rules in front of you and your steps in front of you. If you do that, then hopefully you'll just become a wizard at these, where maybe you don't even have to always make the chart, and you'll just know by looking at it what multiplies to negative 32 and adds to negative 4. Remember to reach out if you have questions.